This is the story of a section of D.C. that is surrounded by 10 neighborhoods, 3 universities, and stretches across 3 different wards. Within its boundaries, there are hospitals, a reservoir, and a sprawling green space for retired veterans. So what is this place we're talking about? This is an area city planners call the North Capitol Crossroads, but you won't find those words on any metro map or street sign. Whether you're familiar with this area or not, I'm here to tell you that there are some amazing things happening in and around this part of our city. And I'm going to introduce you to some of the people who are making those amazing things happen.
So just said, hey, let's paint the bench. And it was just one of those things that kind of just happened.
You're talking about a community of residents getting together when you see the line of us.
And they were sitting on their hands, and I'm jumping up and down because it's such a great opportunity.
What we're talking about is what we call acts of community. People, with their art, their time, their ideas, creating connections, changing their city and their world for the better, one small act at a time. This is District Crossroads, Episode 1, Acts of Community. And I'm your host, Bridget Todd. District Crossroads is a podcast that looks to the future of Washington, D.C., while learning and listening to our current neighbors and dropping in on some stories from the past. And it's brought to you by the D.C. Office of Planning. The Office of Planning conducts the city's planning for D.C.'s neighborhoods, corridors, and districts, and has begun an effort to gather oral histories and other multimedia content to document the voices, experiences, and future visions of D.C.'s residents. In this episode, we're going to explore the North Capitol Crossroads and some of the neighborhoods that connect to it. So where exactly is the North Capitol Crossroads? The area sits on either side of a 1.5-mile stretch of North Capitol Street, starting at the southern end of the McMillan Reservoir, moving north past Michigan Avenue, past the Hospital Center and the Cloverleaf intersection at Irving Street, and ending at the Military Cemetery just north of the Armed Forces Retirement Home. There is a lot to see here, and I'm going to start you at a spot that you're probably familiar with. Okay, so I've come out to the intersection of Michigan Avenue and North Capitol Street, and it is busy, bustling. This part of the district is buzzing with commuters, ambulances, heading to the hospital center, uptown, downtown, crosstown. It's all there. Put all of this together, and during certain parts of the day, you're going to find people waiting all around you. Waiting in their cars, waiting for the bus, waiting to cross the street, and so on. Now, if you owned a house next to this bus stop, you might get a little bit tired of seeing people in front of your house all day. Leaning on your fence, sitting on your front steps. This could cause some friction, right? Well, not necessarily. I want you to meet Umair Ahsan, who has owned a house right near Michigan Avenue and North Capitol for about 7 years.
The bus stop is literally right in front of the house. I started noticing folks, even though there's a bus stop, still stand or sit by the fence while they're waiting for the bus to get out of the sun or get out of standing right in front of the traffic. And I would be coming home and they'd be like, oh, is this okay?
Is this okay? This is where I think a lot of us might have said, no, that is kind of not okay. But not Umair.
So I thought maybe I could put a bench or a chair or something out there. I really wanted to make it a gift to the community. I wanted it to be pretty, have an aesthetic. At the same time, there was an old bathtub that the previous owners left behind, a clawfoot tub that I also needed to find something to do with.
Suddenly, a simple question from a tired bus rider looking for a place to sit is turning into something bigger. He could have just put out a folding chair or a couple of planks of wood. But now, suddenly, there is a very heavy cast iron tub involved. I had to go see this bench in person. Walking down Michigan Ave, here's the bus stop where the 80, the H1, the H4, the H3, the H2 all cross. It's a very busy intersection. Oh my God. Okay, Umair definitely undersold this bus stop. This is a lot more than a weekend project. This is incredible.
So I was at Community Forklift over in Hyattsville, and I saw a clawfoot tub that they had converted into a little sofa. And that gave me a great idea. It's hey, I have a tub at home. I can just convert that over to some benches. So I got to work.
So the bus stop has been fashioned by a cast iron tub that's been split in two and turned into seating for this bus stop. There are two snowboards that have been placed horizontally on top of those tubs to make a backrest. The whole thing is really smartly designed. You might think that the edges of the tub, because it's cast iron, would be rough, but it's been sanded down so it's nice and smooth. But wait, it gets even better.
I should also mention in the process, a friend of mine told me about this organization called the Awesome Foundation. They give out $1,000 grants to small projects that help the community. And so I did apply and they gave me $1,000 too. So now I had some money to work with. Just kind of synchronously at the same time, I was in communication and I was messaging a Pakistani truck artist named Haider Ali just to learn more about the art. And he made the offer that he could come to the U.S. It's like, hey, you know what, this kid, I'm putting a bench right outside on the street. This could be a great thing to display an old traditional Pakistani folk art that I find really beautiful. He decided to come and I gave him some money out of the grant and he painted the bench and it turned out to be much more interesting than I could have imagined.
And Haider Ali is more than just your average painter. If you lived in the area for a while, you may have seen some of his work before.
He was here in the mid-2000s as part of the Smithsonian Folklife Festival and painted a truck, and that gave him some press, and I believe that's how I found out about him too. He painted a truck on the National Mall.
The painting is exquisite and unlike anything you'll see at any other bus stop in the city. It's been painted with the beautiful landscape of mountains of Pakistan and the symbol of the peacock. It says "Love is life" written on top of it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful art. And it's really meant to convey cultural and landmark images of Pakistan.
I really did want it to showcase, some an element of Pakistani culture that I find beautiful and I feel like deserves to be showcased, especially as a lot of press around Pakistan especially in the last couple of decades since 9/11 it's been pretty negative.
This beautiful bathtub bus stop bench has created positivity, joy, and become an artistic feature of the community.
With the neighbors, they loved it. Especially I noticed the little kids, the children, they're much more expressive. They kind of like to climb on the benches and jump around. And I put it out there to sort of bring joy to others, but then it brings me a lot of joy to see that.
I can't believe that this went from, hey, do you mind if I sit on your stoop, to what we see in front of us. It really is a testament to acts of community and how a little bit of labor, a little bit of art can completely transform the space in your own community. This is one way that community starts. Community is not something that is legislated from above. It starts with a few engaged citizens, setting an example, creating a vibe, and building landmarks of goodwill, or what we like to call acts of community. Sometimes this comes in the form of a cool bathtub bench painted by a legendary Pakistani artist. Sometimes, oftentimes actually, it's inspired by the natural world around us. When I travel through these neighborhoods today, I see landscapes dominated by institutional buildings, multiple universities and hospitals, a reservoir, cemeteries, and of course, fragments of the city grid. But if I zoom in a bit, I start to see some other things as well. Like, did you know that there is a 3-acre community garden growing vegetables and providing a quiet place to reflect for neighbors, hospital staff, and visitors? It's called Wangari Gardens, and recently I dropped by there for a visit. Kind of like a secret hidden garden oasis right in the middle of the city. I never even knew it was here. There's a hand-painted large sign, Wangari Gardens. When we plant trees, we plant the seeds of peace and seeds of hope. So this has been a fixture in the community since 2012, connecting gardeners to each other and the wider community. I notice a lot of people growing food. Brussels sprouts, tomatoes. There's a persimmon tree here, butterflies and birds. People have really well maintained these plots. Each one tells a little story about probably that gardener. Juanita Hayes was one of its early volunteers.
And I came over and I just fell in love with it and met Josh Singer. He's a garden community specialist who works for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Misty Frey is another long-standing gardener.
He saw a piece of land that was overgrown and not being used, and he did the work to get permission from DDOT, who owns the land, to build a garden there. And between 2012 and 2013, they ended up building about 100 private plots. And those are people who, pay a yearly fee of $50 if they're able to afford it. If not, people can get a plot for free. And they have a work day they have to attend once a month to work on the area.
And then outside of the garden, there's a community garden, raised beds, where it's open for the community to come and pick produce at their free will. Whenever I see somebody walking through this park in this area, I always invite them to the community garden and let them know, now, there's strawberries over there. There are tomatoes that they can pick. And right now there's some okra that they can pick. And there's basil, there's some squash. But this garden offers a lot for the community.
We started out with little trees, but they're growing each year. We have some fun stuff there. We have pomegranates, we have pawpaws. We have pear trees. We also have someone who comes and tends to bees in the back behind the orchard. He creates honey from Wangari Gardens and he sells it. So that's pretty cool too. He's our beekeeper.
And if you want to see this community in action, come visit on a day when they're filling up their water cistern.
We don't have water on site, so we actually have this big cistern in the back near the orchard, and we connect a fire hose to it. And we fill the cistern from the fire hydrant. It's a very kind of old-fashioned way to do it. I don't think there's a lot of community gardens in DC that still do it that way, but we haven't been able to get the funding for water.
Usually about 25 of us, to run the hose all the way to the cistern. You're talking about a community of residents getting together. When you see the line of us, I have pictures of us per day. Line up because you're connecting all of those hoses together.
Right now I'm walking from the cistern to the hydrant. So I initially thought that they were running the hose just across the street, but now I'm realizing they run it much further than that. Okay, I'm at the hydrant. It's a pretty unassuming fire hydrant, green and blue, right on the corner of Kenyon and Park. This stretch of park is a pretty busy street. It's right in front of the hospital, so it gets a lot of traffic. It's a testament to how much volunteers want to be here and make it work.
Yeah, and then you tape it down. You got to run between the traffic. Because the traffic does not stop, even though you're trying to get the water going into the garden. And so we have to have a covering over the hose to protect them because the cars run over the rubber hose. Oh, it's something to see.
Most days, however, the gardens are a place of peace and reflection.
I've heard stories about people who just they're in the hospital, what they're dealing with is very heavy. Maybe they have a family member in the hospital going through some stuff. So, having that space there just to come over and even just sit under the tree We created something we call the Circle of Peace. It's a circular area. It has benches. It has like these little journals in it for reflection, and people will write different things. And that's really, really cool to read those.
I'm looking at one of those journals now. I'm going to read a couple of the entries. This is dated January 16th, 2022. It is about to snow, and I'm feeling profoundly grateful for this place. A place without fences. A place where things grow every day, year-round. A place where people can live and take shelter in an often unforgiving city. A place where you hear geese overhead. A place where kids sled and throw snowballs. Thank you to every single person who loves and protects Wangari Gardens. Wow, you can really get a sense of how special this place truly is. You know, how this one active community blossomed into something much more. Now, just up the hill from Wangari is a place most DC residents know as the Old Soldiers' Home, but is officially known as AFRH, the Armed Forces Retirement Home. Even at street level, you get a feeling that this is not like other parts of DC. I hear cicadas. Ooh, they are loud right now. That is like a very quintessential, you know you're in DC when you hear that sound. I see a huge collection of geese. They're quite beautiful. They seem a little ominous, like they're up to something. This part is really beautifully maintained. There's all kinds of pink flowers and sloping trees. Even though there's mowing and helicopters and construction, it's still so peaceful. There are rolling green hills, a golf course, a couple of small ponds, even a cottage once used by Abraham Lincoln. But let's remember what, or I should say who, this place was built for. Retired veterans. The 220 veterans and their spouses who live here enjoy a delightful setting right in the middle of the city. Ron Anderson is the Chief of Resident Services at the AFRH.
So at 10 till, they start and they play all 4 military songs.
Yep, there you go. Air Force. That's over there is the resident dormitory, the Sheridan building. Because I understand that I don't have a lot of people and I don't have a lot of money, but there's a huge amount of people on the outside that just want to contribute and they want to give back to these veterans that have given so much. So we've got a pretty robust volunteer coordination center.
Chrissy Thompson, a neighbor of the AFRH, is a board member and volunteer at the Friends of the Soldiers' Home, which was established in 2011. She helps organize community events there.
Currently, we have our monthly saloon nights. They actually have like a full saloon bar in the basement. It's pretty cool. And we bring pizza, we donate beverages, and we also bring in entertainment. So sometimes it is like a musical performance, sometimes it's trivia, and we just spend time with the residents and chat with them and get to know a bit more about them.
The AFRH also sits at a special place in the district's geography, a place where a high ridge wraps the historic center of the district from Anacostia to the National Cathedral. It's no accident that this has become a popular place to visit during a certain summer holiday.
We also have 2 really big festivals. Our biggest festival is probably July 4th. We open up the grounds of the Soldiers' Home and we invite families, friends, surrounding neighborhood people to come on in. We bring in food trucks and beverage stands and children's activities. And then we all sit down on the lawn in the evening when the National Malls fireworks show goes off, which is pretty cool.
Well, this is a phenomenal view of the city. I could definitely see how this would be great for fireworks on 4th of July. A big festival day, it's got to be covered in blankets and lawn chairs and people angling for the best spots. These programs help connect retired soldiers and their families with the wider community. And they might be bigger than you think. Thousands of visitors and a small army of volunteers.
The July 4th and Fall Fest are large events. Like we bring in, I think for Fall Fest, it's 40-some volunteers. And for July 4th, it's close to 70. Actually, one other new program that we do have this year, we are piloting a walking program. So different members of the community can apply. So the idea is to kind of bring more people in. You know, you might come across a resident who lives there, a veteran, and be able to, you know, make a connection and have some conversation with them.
This new access to the AFRH is actually a pretty big deal. The property has long been enclosed by fences. Prior to that, folks were used to cutting through the property, going to visit the 2 ponds tucked into its west end, or simply enjoying the landscape. Like today, those people back when probably caught sight of some of the property's other residents as well.
It's like National Park. There's deer in my front yard, there's turkeys, there's a couple foxes, there's hawks. And I think we had 34 at last count for 34 deer. Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's literally a park in the middle of D.C.
I once found a collection of golf balls in the shrub outside my house that a crow was hiding them in. I don't know if maybe they think they're eggs. It's kind of funny. Definitely a large number of animals in there, too.
But the real treasure of the AFRH will always be its residents. There are those acts of community that you see in front of you every day. And there are those that maybe are a weekly, monthly, or annual event. But sometimes the most important acts of community are tucked into the footnotes of history. They're not splashy, but boy, would things be different if they didn't happen. There's a story I want to share with you about a street in the LaDroit Park neighborhood. It comes from a longtime local resident, activist, and retired Howard facilities manager named Richard Myers. He spent a long career at Howard University, the historically Black college on the southwestern side of the North Capitol Crossroads area. Over the years, he's learned what it takes to build bridges between communities and local institutions. And trust me, it is not always easy.
The neighborhood has changed dramatically. The neighborhood used to be basically, at one time, it was all white community, then it became an African-American community, and now it's a very mixed community. And new residents don't have a feel of what Howard University has meant to the community or what it means to interact with the university and live in the community.
Howard and LaDroit Park are connected by more than just geography.
We tried to do the community association. Howard University have representatives through their program that come to our meeting. But like all community association meetings, it's usually just a small group of activists. So it's very difficult to impress upon the new residents what it means to be a part of Howard University, because we're just right next door.
Richard has had some interesting personal experiences with Howard, not just as an employee, but also as a neighbor.
When I first started at Howard, I lived in Northeast Washington, off of Minnesota Avenue. And after a period of time, I purchased a home in Prince George's County, Oxon Hill area. And I lived there basically until the opportunity became available to purchase the house here. It's Howard University, Bell Atlantic, and HUD. They did a project to revitalize the community of the vacant homes that Howard University had. So I was fortunate enough to take part in that, and I've been here ever since. It was ironic because I was not looking to buy a house. Howard was offering all sorts of incentives, and I tried to get several of the younger people I work with to look into the project because I didn't know much about it. So finally I told several, okay, I'll go with you so we can find out about it. And they were sitting on their hands, and I'm jumping up and down because it's such a great opportunity. And the 2 people I carried to the program, they never did purchase, but I purchased right away, and I've been here ever since 2000.
So how did Howard University end up selling this group of houses? Back in the mid-1990s, the relationship between the community and Howard faced an obstacle. The issue was what to do with these houses adjacent to campus.
They were abandoned houses, and Howard purchased the houses. The whole block of Oakdale was Howard's property. Wanted to tear the houses down to make another parking garage.
This is where we learn about the story of Lillian Robinson. Her name's not in any history book, but her courage is pretty inspiring.
But one lady on Oakdale, older lady, refused to sell. So when she refused to sell, it's about 6 houses on Elm Street, 400 block of Elm Street. And also a few houses on U Street, the 500 block of U Street. There might be 6 houses there. At the time, President Swaggart and Bell Atlantic and HUD decided that, okay, we can't tear the houses down, So let's go in and remodel houses and make the houses available to the employees, faculty, retirees. And what they did was they actually remodeled her house and put air conditioning in it as they did the remodel.
There is also another name I want you to hear, Teresa Brown. Like Lillian Robinson, she fought the destruction of the predominantly African-American neighborhood in LaDroit Park. She saw what Howard University's expansion was going to mean for the historic homes around where she lived. But she took her efforts in a different direction. Over the years, she made the case again and again that there was a history here to preserve. And in 1974, she got LaDroit Park listed on the National Register of Historic Places, helping to protect her neighborhood from the wrecking ball. I'd love to have met both Miss Robinson and Miss Brown. Think about what their acts of community have meant for this part of the district, let alone for individuals like Richard Myers. I think it's time that we paid a little more attention to the North Capitol Crossroads area. There are inspiring things happening here at every intersection and in every pocket park. But bringing these ideas and these positive vibes together and building off of that, well, that's the challenge. Or maybe I should say, the opportunity we have today. DC Office of Planning Director Anita Cozart and her team are currently studying the North Capitol Crossroads and making plans for its future. Let's hear how the Office of Planning is working to make that a reality.
The passion residents have for their communities here and the investment they have poured into making things nicer for their neighbors is incredibly inspiring. For me personally, this area is a special place. I gave birth to my second child at MedStar Hospital. The location was convenient for my ongoing medical care. While today it lacks amenities for expectant parents and their children, very soon everyone will be able to enjoy walking paths and parks. The Office of Planning is undertaking an effort to develop a vision for the future of North Capitol Crossroads. New development is coming to this area, including a combination of market rate, affordable, and senior housing units, as well as dining and shops. Also coming is a new recreation center featuring a pool, fitness center, meeting and gallery space, and a 6-acre park. On the Armed Forces Retirement Home grounds, an 80-acre area is identified for mixed-use development. Other redevelopments will likely follow. Our planning effort is creating a comprehensive framework for the design of this area that will guide future development and drive collective action. We're talking about an enormous area of the district, larger than the National Arboretum, the National Mall, and more than twice the size of the Wharf, Walter Reed, and St. Elizabeth's campuses combined. What excites me about North Capitol Crossroads is the potential for so much closed off and underused space to no longer be separate, but instead to bridge the vibrant communities of Bloomingdale, Edgewood, Stronghold, and Parkview. So that leaves us with a few questions. How can we create centers of connection among groups of people and institutions who have so much to offer each other? What if the majority of Howard, Catholic, and Trinity graduates stayed in DC? What if the thousands of hospital and university employees could all live within the district? What if 50% of the energy used here was produced through renewable sources? What would a connected and accessible system of parks and recreational trails look like here? And what if this was the safest place to walk, bike, bus, and drive? As we continue this visioning process, we want to hear from you, the listeners. How do you experience the North Capitol Crossroads today? And what do you think are the biggest, most transformational opportunities for future generations of DC residents and our residents today? What lessons can we learn from the past to create a more equitable future here? Visit northcapitalcrossroads.com to chime in and share your view.
Once again, check out northcapitalcrossroads.com. This is Bridget Todd. Thanks for listening. District Crossroads is a DC Office of Planning production. Writing and direction by Interface Multimedia and Velo Media. The interviews were recorded by Prologue DC, a woman-owned historical research firm based in Washington, D.C. Urban planning and design consultants were led by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. Our theme song was composed and performed by DC's own Oh He Did.